You're watching Patagonian TV, Rhode Island's public access channel.
I know. Hey, listen, if you can't make it to the show still goes on. The show will go on without you. The show goes on regardless. Okay, I'll see you next month. Bye. Oh. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Jason J. Tavares Show for right-brained entertainers. Today's show is my Halloween show. My guest is Gemmie. Gemmie is a puppet that a guy actually gave me, a friend of mine out in Iowa. Long story, I'm not going to get into that right now. But Gemmie's my guest today. My guest couldn't make it, different circumstances and this and that. They weren't able to be on the show. Gemmie was available, so Gemmie is my Halloween guest. And for Halloween, it's very appropriate to have him on here because he is kind of creepy. He's not going to say much today, but if he does, for this show, you guys will be able to see how fast I can run because I'll be running out of the door quicker than anybody else in the studio. That's guaranteed. So Gemmie, let's not do anything that creepy today. Since I don't have a guest, I have a half-hour segment here for the Halloween show. And I'm going to try to make it as interesting as possible. So what I decided to do is decorate the studio like Halloween. My girlfriend actually was nice enough to give me this hat. It says, I think it says director on it or producer. I think director. I thought that was nice of her because she knows I like to make films. And to commemorate Halloween and, back as a kid and everything like that when, you went out with like sweatpants on to keep warm because it's October, and you had on all your stuff with your costume over it and you end up being like this big. I wore a Hulk t-shirt because my girlfriend gave me this too and I thought that was kind of nice of her because she knows how much I like the Hulk. Funny story about the shirt. I'm going to the supermarket today before the show. I said, geez, I got to pick this up and that up and had to buy some little bit of groceries before coming out here, but I forgot to buy a pumpkin to put on the set. Well, long story short, I'm walking into the supermarket and there's some old lady over there at her car. And she looked at me and I thought she was going to say, hey, can you help me with my groceries? So I turned around to look at her and she's looking at me like this, with this look on her face. And I looked at her and I said, are you okay? And she's like, you're a little old to be wearing that shirt, aren't you? She said to me like that. And I looked at her and I said, well, it was a gift from my girlfriend. I said, she knows I like comics and stuff. And she's like, just looking at me and she goes, oh my God, you're just a little old for that. Well, instead of saying something rude back to her, because I didn't know this person from anywhere, I decided to say to her, I said, the person who invented this is even older than I am. I said, toys and action figures and comic book characters and things like that, they're not designed by little kids, they're designed by adults. I looked at her like that. Even though they're designed for little kids, a lot of adults do like them. And she just looked at me like shocked, like she wasn't expecting that answer. I think she was trying to get a rise out of me, but she didn't get one. So me and the Hulk just turned around and, went right back into the building and got what we had to get, and I forgot the pumpkin. But like I said, I like to ring in Halloween. That's my commemorative Halloween bell. What do you think about that, Gemmie? Don't answer. I'd like to tell you guys some scary stories. As you know, I write books, The Shadow Inside, Existence, The Tale of a Fang Killer, and Broken Tracks Beneath Forgotten Windows. All creepy books. And when you're writing, you take a little bit of yourself and you always put it into the story. That's obvious because then it wouldn't be your story. Today, I'm going to tell you 5 short stories that are real, actually happened to me, scary stuff, unexplained things. When you hear the stories, you may be like, oh, geez, this guy's nuts, he's making this up. These are things that really happened to me, and it makes you feel nuts as the person that it happens to when you come home and you tell your friends, you call your best buddy, or you tell your girlfriend, hey, this happened and that happened, and they look at you like you're crazy. It's almost like walking through a store and blowing on a Bigfoot calling device that I picked up at the dollar store. Not that has anything to do with anything, but I thought it was kind of cool. That's the ring in my stories here. Okay, the first story I'm going to tell took place in Romania. I went on a tour through a company called Tours of Terror out of Derbyshire, Connecticut. It's like 50 people go on this tour. It was really cool. I think it was 2004. It was 2004 because in 2006 I went to England. 2004, go to Romania, meet all these cool people. I had a great time. When I was there was a couple that got married who was on the tour group. They had planned this way ahead of time, of course. It wasn't just spur of the moment getting married in Romania. They got married in Transylvania. We went through Borgo Pass into Transylvania. and they got married on Halloween night, which was pretty awesome. Well, after they were married, I think we were in a cemetery in, I can't remember if it was Sibiu or Pietrafanel, if that's how it's pronounced, Shigasora, one of those places, where apparently Vlad the Impaler, the real-life Dracula, his family was buried. So we're in there, and everybody's walking around, and what was so cool about it was the entire time we were there, it was foggy. Everything was foggy. I mean, I don't know if Romania is a foggy place, but for us it was foggy the whole time. So I actually just got done telling this story recently, too. I was on Keith E. Johnson's show, Ghosts in the Air, and I explained, not full detail like I'm going to do today, but about a photo that I brought in of an actual ghost pic that I'm going to get to that I took in Romania. I didn't bring that today, but I probably should have because it does tie into Halloween, of course. But I just showed it on his show, so I didn't bring it here today. Long story short, we're there, and I snapped their picture. They were both sitting together on this big grave near some mausoleum, which was off to the left, and it's all foggy. And I can't remember their names, but I said, hey, can I take your picture? And they said, oh, yeah, of course. So I snapped their picture, and, I didn't think anything of it. I didn't have digital stuff in my life until like 2003, 2004. So I had a disposable cardboard camera from a dollar store, a junk store, something like that, wherever. So I snapped a picture. I had maybe 100 pictures when I came home. I went to a store. I was getting them developed. I'm standing there reading a magazine once I'm back in Rhode Island. And the lady behind the counter comes over to me. And she goes, are you Jason Tavares? And I'm like, yeah. I said, what did I do? This was 2003, 2004. So she goes, can you come up to the counter? I'm like, oh, crap. So I put the magazine up, go up to the counter. She's going through the pictures. She goes, you just come back from Europe? And I said, yeah. And she goes, look at these pictures. And she goes, now what's this? And she points to this thing. And I'm looking at it. And it's a ghost. It's not like a vapor vision or something like that. It's like taking an average person and making them black from head to toe, like a black figure. It's like making this phone black, this whole area just black. It's that scary of a figure. So when I photographed these two people who were smiling, they just got married and everything, and now we're all hanging out the next day, I snapped their picture. This woman's going up the stairs in the background. It was like 4 cement stairs. She could be seen as clearly as you see me, just a solid black apparition. It's a frightening picture. And anybody who disbelieves that kind of stuff, when they see this picture, it's hanging in my basement in my workout area when you're going down the stairs, they could disbelieve everything in the world. They say, go downstairs and look at this picture. I have the photo, and then I have an 8x10 blow-up. And when they see it, they're like, oh my God, they're scared. Even like the strongest willed person who doesn't believe in that kind of stuff is frightened when they see that picture. So I've shown the picture to a lot of people, and everyone gets the same response. And I just think that's pretty creepy because there's people out there with all kinds of equipment trying to pick stuff up. And I'm just out there, snapping a picture with a disposable camera, and I happen to cross that, and it's a very scary photo. The next story I'd like to tell you, after I have a sip of water, I entitled it on here, Phone Call. I had a family member that died about 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, give or take. She was sick. Fortunately, she had no pain while she was sick, and she passed away. 3 months later, I was getting up for work. My phone had rang. I didn't hear it. I actually had a towel on coming out of the shower, and it was cold outside, I remember, so it was still kind of dark outside, like it's getting now in the mornings. Still dark, when you wake up like 5:30, 6 o'clock, it's like pitch black. So, I'm coming in. I see my phone's lit up. I said, oh, I thought nothing of it. I pick up the phone, missed call. I play the message. It's her voice. But it's her voice in hospice. When she was in hospice, she couldn't really talk near the end of her life. And her voice was all, kind of jumbled, but it was her voice. And I've never been so scared. I remember I pulled the phone away, and I'm holding my towel, and I stepped backwards and sat right on the edge of the bed, and I'm still listening to it. But it was a jumbled sound. So it was almost like trying to make out words, and I could kind of hear my name, and kind of hear what she was saying, but I could not enough to put it into a sentence. I let everybody that I'm close to listen to it and asked them, didn't tell them what it was. I just said, what do you think it is? And anybody that knew her said it was her without me saying a word, just over the tone of the voice. And this is 90 days after she had passed. It couldn't have been a practical joke. And the strange part, this is creepier than anything, I was told by a friend that it came from a Skype machine because the phone number was 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think that was 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It was all numbers. Because when I saw the number, I didn't know. I mean, it literally frightened me to hear her voice because we had just done a funeral. I'd visited her grave and this and that. And then I get this call. Now, not long afterwards, I got another call. I was downstairs, and whenever I refer to my green chair, it's the chair I've had for like 10 years. I bought it for $1. For God's sakes, I still have it since I bought the house. I'm downstairs in my green chair, and I get a call. I'm sitting there watching TV. Hello? And it's a girl. And it's another number, like 0, 1, 2, 3, all numbers. And she had the most clearest voice, no Rhode Island accent or anything. It sounded like maybe she was from a part of Indiana or Ohio, near the middle of the country, well, kind of close to the middle of the country, not Topeka, Kansas, close, like dead center, but, around that area where she had straight dialect, but it sounded like a voice, if this makes any sense, from the past. She said to me on the phone, she goes, "Oh, hello." She goes, "We haven't spoken in a long time now." She goes, "Are you going to be seeing me in the morning?" She goes, "I look forward to seeing you tomorrow." And I'm sitting there, I'm like, "Who is this?" Like that. I said, "I don't know who you are." But she kept talking as I was asking her. I said, "Listen, I'm not trying to be rude or interrupt you." I said, "Who is this?" She goes, "I'll be seeing you very, very soon. I look forward to seeing you again. I had a nice time with you." Da, da, da. I had no clue who it was. It was almost like a phone call that you cut into from like 50 years ago because she was so clear and so polite. It was creepy. It happened like, I think 2 or 3 nights in a row because this was, years back, but it was scary. And I remember telling my friends about that, but nothing was as scary as getting a phone call from my aunt that morning. Knowing it's her, letting so many people hear it. And at the end, I forgot, I think it saved in my phone for 14 days or something like that. I forgot to save it at the end and I lost it. But at least I got to let people hear what I heard. And they were like, "Wow, dude, only you." And I said, "Well, it just seems like these things happen to, to come to me." So I thought that was appropriate to bring up on my Halloween show here. Before I get to the next story, I'd like to cut in. A couple buddies of mine sent me this card from out of state. It's a whole bunch of Halloween characters there. You got Frankenstein, you got witches, a ghost, Dracula. They're all having a party, and it's all in a greeting card. I thought that was kind of nice. Kind of a cool thing. I don't know if you picked up on that camera, but cool little greeting card there. One of the kings of Halloween, Bela Lugosi. I brought his picture here today. And Lon Chaney, the Wolfman. Thought those were kind of cool. Those are hanging in my basement, too. Kind of cool photos from way back when. Now, the next story I'd like to get to, I call this story Patagonian Mara. Patagonian Mara is a Venezuelan rodent. It looks like a rabbit, has long, skinny front legs, kind of like a wolf. Its body, of course, is slanted. Well, not of course, but it's slanted. So if I was to describe it with my hands here, picture a creature with a neck about that long, a head about this big, rabbit-type ears, with a rodent rabbit-type body, but kind of slanted a little bit. And what I mean by that is like how a rabbit sits. This looked like a rabbit sitting even when it was standing because the back legs weren't very long. Front legs were about this long. Now, this is like another dark spirit, kind of like the Romanian picture I took, and I didn't get a photo of this, and I wasn't in Romania. The phone call that I explained was in Rhode Island that happened. Romania was the lady I saw that picked up on the disposable camera. The Patagonian Mara story actually took place in a place called Grimes, Iowa, Friday, September 26th, 2014. Don't quote me on the date, but I think that was the Friday. I was off work, Grimes, Iowa. You don't usually see Venezuelan rodents at night because this is in the United States and you don't see that in Iowa. You do see bobcats, you do see mountain lions every now and again, but you don't see stuff like that. I'm coming out of my apartment. There was a bar about a mile down the road. I say, "Hey, I'm off. I'm doing the responsible thing." Took my license, put it in my back pocket, my money in my pocket with my apartment key because I was living out there for about 10 or 11 months. So I'm walking to the bar, a mile away. I thought I'd go have a drink or two like a lot of adults do and walk back home. I'm walking out the apartment door. There's a big tree outside. I remember I walked under the tree, across a portion of the sidewalk, across the street right there at a small intersection, and I stopped at that corner. There was no cars on the road. It was about 8 p.m., so it was dark outside. I look across the street, and there was a strip of like a small little strip mall, not an actual mall, but maybe like 8 small establishments, and 3 lights that you'd normally see in a parking lot, like at a mall. I look under this light, and I say Patagonian Mara because I researched what I saw. I actually drew it, showed it to guys at work. Everybody was Googling it because nobody believed me. They thought I was nuts, of course. So they're looking at it, and this one guy comes to my office, the same guy that gave me the puppet, Gemmie, that I named Gemmie. He gave it to me as a joke, and I've kept it all this time. But he goes, hey, was this it? He printed it off the internet, and it's called a Patagonian Mara. But just like the lady in Romania, picture this creature that I just described, but solid black. Not black in color like fur, like just black, like looked like almost like paper mache. It was that was one of the scariest things I've ever actually saw. The phone call, so the Romania picture was scary after the fact. The phone call was scary instantaneously. The Patagonian Mara was something that instantaneously over a phone line. The Patagonian Mara was scary in sight because I stopped and I look across the street and this thing's standing there and it's only about this high and it's looking like this, real slow, and its movements looked almost mechanical. Now, I'm just a regular guy wearing regular clothes. I didn't even have a phone on me, almost like people that run into Bigfoot or Loch Ness Monster. They never have a phone and they can never get a clear picture. I ended up with a clear picture in the Romanian thing. I got lucky there. I was probably one of the few people on earth that ended up with a clear picture of something they saw. But this Patagonian Mara, like I said, I had no phone on me, no nothing, no weapons. I'm looking at this thing. There's not a car on the road, nobody around. And there was a lot of traffic on that road normally, not a ton, but enough. And I'm looking at this thing, and it looked around like this, and it stopped. And it kind of pivoted and kind of like an animal where they get in a stance like they're going to charge. And it was probably, I'd say, 75 feet away from me. And I'm looking, and I looked around like this. There's nothing to run to. And this thing, it looked like it could catch me if I try to run back to the apartment. So I'm just standing there staring at it. And I actually squeezed myself. I said, I'm going to squeeze myself and see if I'm awake. Poke yourself like, think of to see if you're actually there, if you're dreaming it. And it looked at me, and it lowered itself, and I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at this thing. I see this thing, but it's not real. It didn't look real. Luckily, I hear music. There's a car coming up the road. This car is coming up the road, and this thing goes like this. It stops, lowers, looks at the car, and took off like a shot behind the building. And I stopped. The car went by, a car full of kids, music, da-da-da. They went by. I watched the car go by, and then other cars started to come by. I never saw the thing again. I ended up explaining it to my landlord, and she was pretty cool, the girl who ran the place. She contacted me about 6 months after I moved back to Rhode Island from Iowa. And she told me, she was sitting in her driveway one day, and she goes, you know what I saw, Jason? And I said, what's that? She goes, I saw the shadow of a man, a black figure, run along the side of the building. And I said, come on. I said, you're going to be joking with me. She goes, I am dead serious. She goes, there's no person to cast the shadow. She goes, I believed you then, and she goes, I believe you now. She goes, there's something in this area. So that's creepy. That's very, very creepy. Because not in the area I lived, about 2 hours away, in 1912, one of the most famous murders in the United States actually took place in Iowa, the Villisca House murders. It made the newspapers the same time that the Titanic sinking did in 1912. So you had the Titanic, all these people perished, and then you had the Villisca House murders, where I think it was a family of 5 or 6 were hacked to death in Iowa, like 2.5 hours in Villisca, Iowa. It's something you might want to look into if you're into eerie stuff like that. How much time do I have? Do I have more than a couple minutes? 10 minutes. All right. I got 2 more stories for you guys for the Halloween show. Here's the next story. I call it Upstairs Door. I was living with a gal, not my girlfriend, it was before my girlfriend, I'd say about 8 years ago. And we're sitting there watching TV in the living room. It was May of 2008, May or June. It was a warm day, May or June in Rhode Island. We're both sitting there. The windows open about this much. Nothing weird, no wind, no nothing like that. And we both go like this at the same time. We both touch our noses. Our cheeks got cold, and our noses got cold. Sitting on my couch, both Indian style, I think watching a Van Damme or a Stallone movie or something like that. You guys knew I had to mention Stallone. The shirt's not hanging for the Halloween episode or the bobblehead, but had to mention him. So sitting there watching TV, we both touch our noses, and I look at her and I say, is your nose and your face cold? She's like, yes. And she looked at me scared. And I'm like, oh my God. So we're both sitting there. A couple seconds pass. The upstairs door closes in my apartment. Now, there's nothing weird about the upstairs door closing. It's a flimsy little upstairs door like you'd see. I live in a condominium, but it's like an apartment door. It's a flimsy little door. Place was built like 25 years ago, so it's not like a big, heavy door. The only thing is you have to go up the stairs, and there's the door. and go around the corner to go into the bedroom. You could have a hurricane going on. You could have every fan on, every ceiling fan. You could even bang the door against the wall. It's never going to close all the way because when it closes, you have to pull up the handle. So since that day, I've put like a pair of sweatpants over the top of it so it can never close again. But, you know, I touch my nose, she touches her nose, we look at each other, and I hear the door close upstairs. And she looks at me and she goes, "What was that?" I get up and I'm standing on the landing and I look up there and I said, "You're never going to believe this." She's like, What? And I said, "The upstairs door is closed." And she looked more scared and freaked out, not about her face being cold or her nose, about that. She goes, "How?" It was impossible to close unless you physically took it, closed it, and pulled the handle up to close it. And it's never closed since then. And I still find that creepy. I've always left either a sweatshirt or a pair of sweatpants over it because I never want to be asleep and have it slam, or, you know, maybe something really scary is happening or you're nervous about something and it happens. But it's never happened again. I've been in that house for 10 years, or that condominium for 10 years now. Here's another story, since I have a couple minutes to go. This is going way back to when I lived in Indiana. I lived out in Indiana for about 7 years, 14 years ago. It's kind of a two-part story, and for it to all happen in one day is really weird. I drove a 1987 Nissan back then. It's like a little sporty 1987 car. Great car. I loved it. I had that for 7 years as well. I'm driving up Highway 69 going to a girl's house that I was dating back then. And at the time we were just friends before we dated. And I'm heading to her house, and there's an 18-wheeler next to me. You know, I thought nothing of it. I had my little T-top open on the top, driving on the highway. The 18-wheeler sped up, got in front of me, and went off the side of the road. And a lot of those, in-betweens on the highway there have a kind of a big dip in them. This thing went over, and the whole trailer flipped in the air, and the guy was trapped inside. So I ended up parking my car, like a lot of people did, ran down the hill after the thing, boom, boom, and I went in the cab to try to get the guy out, and the guy was pinned by the steering wheel, so he wasn't going anywhere. A couple minutes later, I was trying to pull this thing off, and I didn't know what to do. The wheel was right into his stomach. Before you knew it, emergency management people were here. Police came, "Please get out of the area. Thank you for coming down." So I, went about my way and let them do their business. I'm walking back up the hill to my car, and this lady comes up to me. She was parked behind me. She goes, "Do you own that little white Nissan?" And I said, "Yeah," like that. And she goes, "I can't believe you're alive." I was like, "Why?" I wasn't in the truck. She goes, "That thing was leaned over you like this. It was on one set of tires driving next to you. It sped up and went in front of you and then went off the road. You didn't see that?" I said, "No, I saw it next to me. I didn't notice it was leaned." She goes, "All the traffic behind you was like all slowing down and you're just right next to it." She goes, "But it looked like it sped up on its own and went off the side of the road." And I was like, "Well, I had no idea." And she just looked at me and she goes, "You're so lucky." And she looked at me like she was looking at a ghost, like, "Oh my God, you shouldn't be alive. That thing should have crushed you." I was like, wow. So I drive the rest of the way up to Anderson, Indiana. That's where I was heading to. I get there, and, my friend greets me at the door. I tell her all about that and this and that. And she had food ready for us, and we were getting ready to watch TV. And we used to sit on the floor in front of her couch and eat. So she gives me her plate, and we both liked hot sauce on our food, I remember. She gives me the plate. We have stuff on the floor, glass of water and this and that. She had hot sauce, and I said, "Can I use the hot sauce?" She goes, "Yeah." I put the hot sauce on my food, put the cap on. I put it down. She goes, "Oh, can I get the hot sauce?" I said, "Yeah." No hot sauce bottle. Only us in the house during the day. Nothing out of the ordinary going on. We couldn't find the bottle. And she goes, "Oh, you're joking around. You're doing this, you're doing that." We stopped eating. We put the plates in the kitchen, moved the couch, everything under the sun. She checks me, pats me down to see if I took it. Nothing. About a week later, she had these really high ceilings, like 10-foot ceilings, in these long old cabinets in her apartment. So I walk in maybe about, a couple days later, a week later, I can't remember. And I walk in and I said, "What's that?" And she goes, "What?" She gets up on the counter, opens the cabinet, the hot sauce bottles in the upper right top shelf. She so blamed me for it. She goes, "That was you did that." I said, "I did not do that." I said, "I would have had to freeze time, take the hot sauce bottle, put it up there and come back and sit down." Impossible, but it's a true story. I was just told I only have 5 minutes left. I really don't know what to add in 5 minutes, but what I would like to say, once again, I'd like to thank Gemmie. He's been the quietest guest. Gemmie, thank you for being here today, and thank you for not talking, because I would have ran out of here extremely frightened. I didn't have a guest today, but I did promise the studio that I would do a show. There's people here in place to do shows and to do all the camera work, and I didn't want to let them down. So I thought, to commemorate Halloween and to ring it in. I love Halloween. It's my favorite holiday, and I have so much creepy stuff to always talk about. I thought I would just give you guys, 5 short stories, tell you a few things about myself, different places that I've lived. But I will say to you that I would appreciate it if you guys look into me online, Jason J. Tavares. I got books you can check out, films on YouTube. Of course, the show is on YouTube, and you're always welcome to be a guest on here. Writers, directors, producers, actors, singers, sculptors, dancers, anything. If you're right-brained, you're creative, you want to be heard, you want to talk about what you do, just let me know. Contact me. My email will probably come across the screen in a couple minutes if it hasn't already. And you could be a guest. And I'd love to talk to you. I mean, nothing that you do isn't creative enough to be on the show. You can always be a guest on the show, and I welcome you to be on. Just let me know. I'll set up a spot. The people here are always willing to take care of us, and we can have a great program. Have a very safe Halloween, I'd like to put out. A lot of bad stuff going on in the world, unfortunately, these days, but still try to have a happy and safe Halloween. It's the one time a year you get to really be a kid, and I hope you guys go out with your families and have a good time, or out with your friends and enjoy yourselves and stay safe. This was episode, I think, 9. Am I mistaken? 9, right? 9 of the Jason J. Tavares Show for Right-Brained Entertainers. I hope to see you soon. That's it. Have a nice week. Thank you for watching. And happy Halloween.